Well, Gene Rossi, now here's his new motto. I am a lawyer and I play one on TV. This guy is just amazing. And we're going to put Don Byer on notice. I will introduce Don to come up and say a few words as our closer after me, because he and I are teammates, so I'll introduce Don at the end of my talk. But Gene, to you and to Diane, to your daughter, to your brother, I remember that event so well. It was in his home in this beautiful little town of Connecticut. It was in October. New England, the leaves were beautiful. It was just a fantastic day, and it felt real home. Your brother had kids back from college in Boston and elsewhere. We were together, and I just am so happy you're doing this event. And I will say to Gene, you're a great host, because for the last 2 months I've been calling people and asking them to come to one event or another, and they said, no, I'm coming to Gene's event at the Point City Brewery. So it's either you or the brewery here. We've got the Point City applause line here. This is a wonderful local business. Great story. If you don't know the story of this business, family dream to get it started. They just made the choice, and it's, is it Bob? What's Bob's last name? Bill Butcher. Bill Butcher. So, is Bill right here in the room somewhere? Bill. Bill was with Mondavi doing wine distribution. Wanted to go into beer making. It's just that he picked exactly the wrong time to do it. 2008, 2009, economy in a tough go, but working with his banker, Kerry Donnelly, and working with the Obama administration's SBA, they got the loans to get this business going. It's growing 30% year over year. And this great small business owner spoke at the Charlotte Convention in 2012 to talk about what it is to have a good Democratic administration that knows how to help businesses get here. Really happy to have Jim Moran here, my longtime friend, somebody I really admire, great public and all of the electeds, and especially the folks who are on the ballot as my ticket mates in November, because it is a team. You know, politics is one of the few sports in life where you can decide whether it's an individual sport or a team sport. And the player gets to make that call. And I like team sport people, and I've always been a team player, trying to do what I can to help my team. And trying to do that with our house races. We have an excellent opportunity to pick up 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 new house seats in Virginia. We can do that. But to all of you running for city council, school board, local offices, I started 35 years old. I was a young man running for city council in Richmond in 1994. You will put your stamp in a very visible way, your thumbprint on your local community. I'm very proud of all of you who have run, who are running. Thank you for your commitment. The other thing I want to do is I want you to know a little bit about my staff. Gene was so kind to acknowledge them, but I just want you to all know my campaign manager, Bryn Charles Dongo, who's right here. A lot of you guys know Bryn. Communications director right there. Taylor Hennings. Taylor has worked on this event on the finance side. Ellie Warner. Ellie also works on the finance side. Ellie. And then somebody who I just want to introduce is Lowell Bell. I saw Lowell coming in. Many of you may not know Lowell, and maybe you've never seen him, but you know Lowell because if you're in Virginia Democratic politics or interested in progressive stuff, you probably read Blue Virginia 5 times a day. And Lowell has made this a passion, an avocation, a calling, I guess now since 2005. Lowell started when I was running for governor. It was called Raising Kaine. And then he realized, well, you know, maybe there's some other Democrats in Virginia. And it was smart to make it Blue Virginia to try to encompass everybody. But, well, that's a hell of a lot of work that you do. And
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Give Lowell. You know, Gene, I'll just tell you this. Gene talked about him. He wants to wake up on November 7th And instead of being happy and unhappy and hungover, he wants to be happy and hungover. He wants to feel good about the race. But Gene, it's not really about my race. My race is not fundamentally about Tim versus Corey. Just like these house races are not really Jennifer versus Barbara. This is a race about who we are and who we aren't as a Commonwealth, as in the country. That's what's on the ballot in 2018. We sent a powerful message to the nation in 2017. The first meaningful statewide race, not a special election in a gerrymandered House district, but meaningful statewide race in the battleground state. What do we think adhere into this administration? And the message that Virginians sent overwhelmingly was, we're not on the sidelines, we're not taking an abusive chief executive who is contrary to our values sitting down. We are active and engaged. And we swept all of the statewide races, including the historic election of the second African American to be elected statewide in Virginia, Justin Fairfax. We won more seats in our House of Delegates than we had since 1872. And in a time where the message from on high has been about division and fighting with one another, we won seats African American, Latino American, Asian American, Muslim American, immigrant born, LGBT, openly transgender. 11 of the 15 House seats we won were with women candidates. Many were first-time candidates. The message that Virginia sent to the nation at a time when the nation wanted a little bit of a hope sign was that we're off the sidelines, we're active, we're engaged, and we are not going to take sitting down activities, even of our chief executive, that are contrary to our values. And we still need to send that. Now, what we saw is there was activity in 2017 by voters, canvassers, volunteers, candidates. And then there were wins on election day. But for Democrats, that's not enough. Because we're not doing this. We are not doing this about elections. Elections are not an end, they're a means to an end. And if you want to know just one thing that tells you the difference between who the two sides are, just look at what Democrats did when we had a historic win. Those legislative candidates that you elected went to Richmond, picked up the mantle of a multi-year battle to try to expand Medicaid so that 400,000 people in this Commonwealth, many of whom had never had health insurance in their lives, could get it for the first time. That is what Democrats believe. This place only works if it works for all, and it's that for all value. That is on the ballot come November. I love those words for all at the end of the Pledge of Allegiance. I love the fact that the pledge didn't end with liberty and justice, period. If it had, that would have been an okay pledge, pledging to a flag representing a nation indivisible under God with liberty and justice. But Francis Billamy, the minister who wrote the pledge, added those words for all. And in 2018, that's who we are, and that's what's at stake. Because we are against a party, and I'm against the candidate, Jennifer's against the candidate, and we're dealing with the president that aren't really for all. They're for some or a few, or in the president's case, for me. And I can just prove it to you. I've been struck by this. When the Democrats were fighting to expand Medicaid in Virginia, you can tell from looking at a map that half the people who got Medicaid as a result aren't our voters. I mean, you can look and see the counties where they live, the places where they live. Half of them are not our voters. Half of them probably never voted for Democrats. Some of them will never vote for Democrats. Some of them will never even say thank you. Never even say thank you to the party or the president, President Obama, that expanded the Affordable Care Act and pushed through Medicaid expansion so that they and their families could have a safer and more secure future. But the fact that they did or do not vote for us, or they wouldn't say thank you, that didn't dissuade us. We were still excited about pushing to do what was right. And why? Because if you are a Virginian, you are my neighbor, and I am commanded to love my neighbor, and I don't get a pass for whether you vote for me or not, or whether you attended a fundraiser for me or not. If you are a Virginian, if you are an American, you are my neighbor, and that's what Democrats stand for these days. We don't mind doing politically tough, heavy lifting to help people have a lighter burden along life's path. even if they are not our supporters. That's what it means to be a for-all party. And on the other side of the aisle, I've seen that too. I stood on the floor of the United States Senate in July of 2017 at 2:30 in the morning when President Trump and the Republican majority were reaching the fruition of their number one goal. President Trump said it on Inauguration Day. My number one goal is repeal the Affordable Care Act. And it took him months. He thought he could do it on day one, and then he famously said, who knew health care could be so complicated? But they really made it their number one goal. Jim knows this so well. March and April in Congress is supposed to be about passing the budget. In 2017, they didn't do that. They said, we don't have time to pass a budget. We got to repeal the Affordable Care Act. So they pushed the budget all the way back to the fall because that didn't matter to them. The only thing that mattered to them, the only thing, was focusing purely on taking health insurance away from millions of people. And they eventually got it through the House, and they eventually got it through the Senate. And they got it on the Senate floor, and now it's late July, it's 6 months in, and we're going to have a vote. It's crunch time. The CBO says that bill, if it passes, causes more than 20 million people to lose their health insurance. And just like in Virginia, we knew who was going to get Medicaid expansion, you could also look at the 20 million and you knew who was going to lose health insurance, who was going to lose health care. And the Republicans who were pushing it, who decided that was their number one priority, they knew too. And they knew that at least half of those who were going to lose health insurance were their own voters. That was their top priority. Taking health care away from their own people in the not tens or 20s, but in the tens of millions. Folks, we're not talking about naming a post office. We are not talking about a minor thing. There is nothing in life other than your relationships that is more important than your health and the health of your families, and yet that was their top priority. So I'm here to tell you that in 2018, there's a difference between a party that is staked to that Pledge of Allegiance value that we're going to be for all, even if people who aren't for us, we're still going to be for all, and a party who's completely willing to cast aside not only their opponents, but even their supporters. That's what's on the ballot in November. We have to send a message in Virginia with the House races, in my race. We have to send a message all across this country that when our kids go into those schoolrooms every day and we ask them to look at that flag and pledge to a nation that only succeeds if it succeeds for all, that we're not asking them to lie, that we haven't changed our mind, that we really still believe that and live that and want them to live it. And that's on our shoulders. And that's what this election is about. So that's why we turn out in such strong numbers. I'm so happy to have had the chance to represent my city and my state and now at the national level for 24 years. But I am as energized in this race because of what's at stake, because of who my opponent is, because of the example that Virginia's been setting of turning the state from red to blue, from insular to open, from sluggish to economically dynamic, from not focused on education to now focused on it. I'm so proud of the work that we've done together. Virginia is the best political turnaround project in the United States in the last 30 years because of you. And I don't want to go back. All of you have worked too hard to get us in that position where we're living more like our values. We say we're for lovers. Are we still, or are we for haters now? We say we're for equality. Are we still, or are we going to go a different direction? That's what's on the ballot. And that's why we have to work so hard to make sure we win. Now I'm going to introduce a great friend, Don Beyer. Don is somebody who I knew so well by reputation first before I got onto the Richmond City Council, and I've worked with him in multiple ways and on multiple issues. When he joined the Senate, when he joined the House and became part of that Virginia delegation that meets every month,